Could the Notre Dame USC rivalry really be over? Jennifer Cohen and Lincoln Riley have both had interesting comments when asked about the rivalry. We're going to talk about their quotes, what that could mean for the future, and what exactly is Notre Dame's perspective in all of this. But first, guys, welcome in to the channel, the voice of college football on Notre Dame. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. Had a live last night on Monday, talking about this very topic, among other topics, and was great for the people that stopped by. So make sure to continue to do that. Stop by on Monday. It previews everything that we're going to be talking about throughout the week, and it helps the channel out. Also, make sure to subscribe. That surely helps the channel out as well. Okay, let's get into what exactly is going on with USC and their perspective on this rivalry. So Jennifer Cohen, who is the athletic director for USC, sat down with some people at The Athletic and just talked about overall the trajectory and where the USC program was going. And when asked about Notre Dame, who USC has played 95 times since 1926, she was a little bit more non-committal than you would like, right? USC athletic director recently sat down with them, and she said in a perfect world that she would take on Notre Dame every single year, on the Trojan schedule, right? She said, it's such an important series to our fans at both universities. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. In an ideal world, we're going to keep playing each other. That is a quote. Now, I think a lot of people question, hey, why does this need to be in an ideal world, right? What kind of perfect world or percentage of a perfect world would be necessary for you to keep such a storied rivalry? You kind of want to be able to keep this no matter what. But as we all know, with conference realignment, USC going to the Big Ten, things kind of change a little bit, right? And with Notre Dame potentially being tied into the ACC or whoever else as time goes on, maybe things change. Now she also went on to say some other stuff, and I'll read you the rest of the quote right now. With that being said, the landscape has changed dramatically. We're now playing in a conference where we fly back and forth across the country every week. And college football playoff expansion and how you get access to the CFP and how things are seeded and selected. Those, to me, are important unanswered questions. So we remain in conversations with Notre Dame about the series, and I think we're clear to each other that we're going to evaluate what's best. And it's my job to evaluate what's best for our student athletes and our program. Now, she did end up having to end the interview on a high note, because I don't think that this expresses full sentiment that she is willing to just throw it to the side. As we keep doing that, we're excited to go back to South Bend next year. Obviously, USC, Notre Dame, going to continue for the near future, one would imagine, but maybe long-term, USC might take a real hard look at whether or not they want to continue this rivalry, especially since they already do so much traveling in the Big Ten, excuse me. I think that that's fair from USC's perspective. Before I get into Notre Dame's perspective and then Lincoln Riley's comments from last summer, I think it's fair. Obviously, they're doing a lot more traveling than anybody else would imagine. Who knows if they really wanted to stay in the Pac-12? They certainly had the Pac-10 on their backs for a long time. I know with revenue sharing and all of that good stuff, sometimes it's not so good stuff for a team like USC who's bringing in so much money, a program like that. But and maybe you don't want to do so much traveling, but maybe they didn't want out of that conference. And there is a real thing about going all the way to Michigan, all the way to Ohio State, all the way to these other schools across the country. There's something real to that. And I get it, because not every program is going to be like a Notre Dame where, hey, they're good with going out of the country to play their first game. They're good with going to New York to play whoever. They're good to go all the way to Miami to play the Hurricanes. Not every program is going to be like that. And USC certainly already has their work cut out for them. It's not like Notre Dame is at least closer-ish to the teams that are in the ACC, although who knows? All of this geography is all the way messed up. Now, Notre Dame's perspective on this. From Notre Dame's side, we haven't heard anything of the sorts of saying that they want to give up USC, because they certainly want them still on their schedule. They want Navy still on their schedule for the end of time, hopefully, right? They want these programs on their schedule, on their to-do list, on their to-beat list, potentially, hopefully, every single year. And there is no question about traveling. How many miles flown? I get it. We're trying to look out for the student athletes, but this game has changed a little bit. I think traveling is unfortunately not as high on anybody's radar. And so it's very interesting that USC does present this kind of issue. So let's go all the way back. What did Lincoln Riley say last year? This was going into the 2024 season. He made some interesting comments at the Big Ten Media Day. And this kind of has resurfaced a little bit since Jennifer Cohen's comments. And he was non-committal as well. So I think it's a very interesting perspective that this is something that kind of was laying low for about a year. And now we're seeing it pop up again in 2 consecutive off seasons. Quote from Lincoln Riley in response to, trying to kind of continue on. But, at worst, it certainly seems like he's trying to end this relation as soon as possible, says the article describing his quotes. Now we're going to get into it. I would love to not end it, but continue on. I know it means a lot to a lot of people, the purist in you, no doubt. Now, if you get in a position where you got to make a decision on what's best for SC to help us win a national championship versus keeping that, shoot, then you got to look at it. And listen, we're not the first example of that. Look all the way across the country. There's been a lot of other teams sacrifice rivalry games. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But as we get into the playoff structure, and if it changes or not, we're in this new conference. We're going to learn something about this as we go and what the right and the best track is to winning a national championship. That's going to evolve. Now, does this sound like an excuse? I don't know. Everybody else is doing it is maybe a fair take on what he is saying. But also at the same time, you do still have to understand they are West Coast teams playing in the Big Ten, and that is still the biggest geographical difference, I believe, for the most part in the country. Maybe some other teams, are traveling all the way to the ACC as well. I mean, the whole Pac-12 got completely disbanded, right? But those teams are still dealing with a lot. But that is very interesting that same sentiment from last summer has continued on into 2025, and the AD is also being open and non-committal about the future of this rivalry. Now, he also went on to reference Alabama as a team that makes its schedule based on winning championships, not on pleasing fans. But it should be noted that while Alabama does want to win championships, and while they are that kind of team, they also scheduled Texas, Miami, Michigan, and, other programs that are around the country, including Notre Dame, which there's a home and home. And Lincoln Riley made these comments prior to the season starting last year. They also traveled to Camp Randall to play Wisconsin at the very beginning of the year this past season in 2024. So while he's referencing Alabama, and that's what was the pinnacle of college football for a very long time, it almost seems like it doesn't align exactly, which I find very interesting. Now, is this going to be something that continues to persist into 2026? And as time goes on, then we really realize that USC wants out of this specific rivalry? Maybe. Hopefully not for anybody's sake. Obviously, USC's schedule is going to be tough enough, especially in the Big Ten. But it still is always bolstered, and I don't think losing to Notre Dame, especially when they're good and they're on top, is usually a hurt to your schedule, to your strength of record. It usually helps you, especially if you can play well and that's a close game. And I think it's the same perspective from Notre Dame, right? They certainly are at a bit of an advantage because they don't have to play that Big Ten schedule, which can get pretty crazy, especially considering that you now got Oregon and that whole bunch as well still around. But they certainly would respect and have USC on that schedule, even if they were really, really good. So I don't really buy too much into, hey, this helps us win championships. I think it's a very fair trade-off for both teams. I think the committee usually looks at this matchup with a truly unbiased and understanding perspective that both of these teams travel a lot. They have their own conference schedules. And while Notre Dame not being in a conference still has the ACC tie-ins. And when they play and when they're both good, it's judged properly. So I don't really get what they're saying, but I think it's very interesting. That's the kind of situation that is going on right now. I don't think anything's going to happen in the near future. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Is this something that you could potentially see going away? Is this a rivalry that we may look back on and wish that we still had? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow with more Notre Dame football content.